Okay. Okay, so I'm here live with Beth Wolfgram. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. And I'm Coach Anna Nemeckay with Balance Art Multisport. And Beth, tell us about your company. You're a nutritionist, nutritional consultant. How do you say it?
So I'm a board certified sports dietitian. So I'm a registered dietitian, but my specialty is sports. So I work with athletes at all different levels: professional, collegiate, high school, recreational athletes, to help them improve performance. So yeah, my business is fueling your performance. As I said, I work with athletes at all different levels, helping with all kinds of different things: recovery from injury, return to sport, from possibly surgery, fueling their body for their particular needs, helping them navigate puberty and changes in their body, and, other things that they have goals set for and stuff. So yeah, it's awesome. It's fun. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, great. So this is a two-part series that we're doing with Beth. This is part two. In the first part, can we go over just a quick couple sentences of what we went over the first time, just in case people might have missed it?
Yeah. So on Friday, we talked about, what seems to be a good foundation to start with is during this time, we're all in a situation where we are maybe not racing in the way we had hoped to be. Our training has changed, our lives have changed, possibly our food supply has changed, access to swimming has changed, our ability to do what we had been hoping to do has changed. So we talked about a few different things, and those main things were controlling and your intake, or being aware of your intake of your calorie needs based on what your energy output is. We talked about fruits and vegetables and the importance of those with the immune system, and getting a variety of those in. And then we also talked about the importance of carbohydrates for athletes. And we really kept tying that back to, having some grace with yourself and being kind to yourself during this time. It's a very challenging time for a lot of people emotionally. Stress levels are high. We're not able to train in the way we were planning to. So there's a lot of emotional stuff going on for people, and that might mean people are resorting to food or falling back on food for mindless eating and stress eating, that kind of stuff. So we talked about fruits and veggies, carbs, and adequate caloric intake, but also being kind to yourself and not.
Yeah, I've noticed on my Facebook feed, more people are baking bread, which I think is actually a good thing, because
I do too.
I think it's a lot different than when you have to bake it and make the yeast rise and all that, and then watch it, cooking in the little bread maker, than just going to the store and grabbing it. I think you're a little bit more conscientious about how you're eating, bread, God forbid, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I think you kind of value it a little bit more when you bake it at home.
Completely. And I think, that brings up a really good point, Anna. People seem to be cooking more. They're home more. Like, we're not rushing in from work and then out to basketball practice, and we're home more, so we're cooking more, but we're experimenting and doing things that we wouldn't do. So I do think that there's definitely an opportunity in all of this, and that's one of my big messages with today. We're going to talk about 3 key things, but I think something to really consider is, where's the opportunity in this whole situation? Right. What can you do? What can you control? And there's things you can't control. So what can you control, and what can you do to take this as an opportunity to maybe learn how to bake your own bread, or learn how to grow some vegetables, or learn some new salad dishes, work on your smoothie repertoire. I mean, so many different things that you can do to enhance your fueling as an athlete. So it's not all negative. It's really how you look at it. It's, use this.
All in your attitude. Yeah, all in your attitude. So now in part 2, we wanted to go over the other 3 things that Beth had mentioned in her article that we posted on our Facebook page on Balance Art Multisport. So you can scroll down and refer back to that, or we'll add a link to that, so then you could refer back to that. And the next thing you wanted to talk about was hydration, which and everyone always says, and even myself as a coach, one of the first things I ask people is, are you getting in enough water? And I think that's kind of too open-ended of a question. Some people don't know what enough water is. So let's talk about that.
So, the reason to even think about this now is that our routines have changed. Yes, you need water. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes, that hydration is important. We know all of that, but our routine has changed and we're working in a different setting. Maybe you're working at home. Maybe you're helping your kids with school and working and doing different things. You're not training at the same time. So you're out of your routine. So when we get out of our routine, then all those things that we had in place, those systems help us, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have my normal routine of grab my water and go to this meeting and do this and grab it again and refill it. So some of the basics like this, it's like we have to establish new routines. And, hydration is just so critical for everything our body does. I mean, immune system building to laying down new muscle tissue to recovery to healing. I mean, it's just critical. And everybody listening to this, I'm sure knows that. A good baseline of how much you need in a day is to take your body weight. So say you weigh 180 pounds, take your body weight, divide it by 2. 90. That's about the baseline of what you need in a day in ounces. So 180 would need about 90 ounces a day as a baseline. Now, if you're someone who's maybe you're still doing a lot of training, it's starting to get warmer here in Salt Lake, depending on where you are, the temperature might be different. You might be training inside where it's warmer. You might be getting outside on a nice day. If you're doing a lot of training still, your needs are going to be higher than that. And you're probably going to have to consider adding some electrolytes and some carbohydrates. But your day-to-day fueling needs are that take your body weight and divide it by 2. And if you're not getting that, is there a system in place that, like I said, our routines are all off. I mean, I had my morning routine and now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not getting up at the same time. I'm not getting my son to school at the same time. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to create this new system, this new routine. So what can you do to create that new routine so that you're keeping your hydration status up and it doesn't get to be 2 in the afternoon and you're like, oh my gosh, I've only had like 3 sips of water. So, and something to consider, I like water personally, not everybody does. You can still get hydrated from other liquids. So you can get hydrated from like a flavored seltzer water. If you want to do like a sugar-free iced tea or a lemonade, there's a lot of things out there. You can get like all natural flavored orange or flavored lime or lemon or something like that to put in. There's also water bottles that you can put vegetables in or fruit in, and it seeps in the flavors. And that's great. It's a good, if you don't love the taste of water, that's fine. You can get your fluid status met with other types of fluids, including milk or smoothies, or, if you're doing cherry juice or beetroot juice, anything like that. The one exception I would say would be, even though you can still hydrate your body with products that have caffeine in them, it's not quite as good as a method of hydrating your body's cells. So if you're doing coffee or tea or a diet soda or an energy drink, I wouldn't count that towards your ounces of the day for your hydration. You are getting some hydration there, but it's not at the same level.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would help people a lot, because I know, like you said, a lot of people don't like the taste of water, and because they don't, and that's fine. But to know that they can still get hydration from other sources and get, they're getting some sort of hydration, it doesn't have to be just water. So that's, I think, giving people, oh, thank goodness, so, because I like seltzered water a lot and I drink a lot of it. So I know I'm getting some of my hydration.
So that's great. So that works for you. And I think, we talked about this last Friday, is that there isn't one thing that works for everybody.
Everyone,
There's one way to do this. There's not one way of eating or fueling your body as an athlete. There's lots of different ways to do it. Nutrition is a science and is based on science, but it's also an art in figuring out what works for each person, what works for your body type, what works for your energy levels, for what you're doing, what you're putting your body under stress-wise. So we really need to just figure out what's going to work best for you. Lots of tools to use. It's just figuring out the one that's right for you.
Right. So before we leave the hydration topic, could you give us a quick little baseline on so how, 1 bottle per hour if you I know obviously heat and body weight and gender and sweat rate have something to do with it, but if you could give like athletes an idea of like at least a baseline to start with.
For when they're training?
Yeah, for when they're training.
So the recommendations when you're training, and obviously there's lots of variables, but the bottom line recommendations when you're training are somewhere between 4 and 8 ounces of fluid every 15 minutes. So
okay.
Look at like what that is. That's like 32 ounces and up.
An hour.
Yeah. And that depends on obviously the person, the body weight of the person, what they're doing. And then if you're getting in anything over an hour, that's when you really need to make sure you've got some carbohydrate replacement and some electrolytes. So if you're doing a short workout, 40, 45 minutes, anything under an hour, you don't need carbs and electrolytes unless it's super hot and you're prone to cramping. But if it's over that, you definitely need to have some carbohydrates, some electrolytes, and you don't just go from having very little fluid to like drinking
a lot, right?
Right. And you don't want to just chug it. That's the other thing I see people do, is just they get up and they like chug a whole liter. And oftentimes when you do that, you're just going to run to the bathroom. Our cells need to have it over a regular period of time. So small sips throughout the day or throughout your ride are much better tolerated on your gut and your bladder than having a huge intake all at once.
Yeah, I have my athletes, especially on the bike. I have them their device. I have it on their bike workout. It should go off every 20 minutes.
Yes,
vibrate or something,
yeah.
And then that way it gives them a reminder to fuel during the bike ride. Because in the run, in a race especially, there's an aid station every mile. But in the bike rides, even in an Ironman, you get maybe 6. So that will remind them to drink and eat.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to the next one, we wanted to talk about protein and how important it is to optimize our protein as athletes.
So protein is another macronutrient. We talked about on Friday, carbohydrates are a macronutrient, protein's another macronutrient, which means that we need fairly large amounts of it to help our body to do lots of different functions. Now, protein for an athlete is important for building and repairing muscle tissue. So if you're trying to recover from a hard workout, you're trying to recover from an injury or a surgery or a cold or a flu or some type you run down, your body needs protein in order to do that. It helps it to lay down new muscle tissue, repair tissue that you have maybe damaged in a workout. So it's super important for an athlete in lots of different levels. If we don't get enough, then our immune system can go down, which of course, right now we all want to stay as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
So we want to have optimal immune system. We also want to, if you are still training, which, I'm actually doing more strength training now than I would have been if this wasn't the case in the pandemic, because my Ironman, most likely, Lake Placid, is still not canceled, but most likely it's going to be. I know, but I'm thinking I haven't done a swim in 8 weeks. So I'm focusing a lot on strength training, so a lot more so. So I definitely need to have a little bit more of that protein to help me with building muscle and repairing from a workout. So protein is really important. If you're not getting enough, you're also going to feel hungry a lot. You're not going to feel satisfied, satiated. You're not going to recover from your workouts. So you won't be able to do a hard workout today and then come back for another one tomorrow. You're not going to make gains. You're going to be doing a ton of work and feel like you're just not getting any faster or any stronger or any more power. You're just going to be like spinning your wheels. So even though protein is not an good energy source, we don't use it for energy like we do carbohydrates, or we don't want to. It's not optimal. It's still super, super critical. So I recommend you make sure you have a quality protein source at each meal: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then all your snacks should have some protein. So it's basically distributed throughout the day. Endurance athletes, technically, if you were to figure out how much you need, and there's some variability, of course, but you take your body weight and divide it by 2 to get your kilograms. That's about your number of kilograms, 2.2 to be exact, divided by. So, and then from there, endurance athletes need 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. That's what the latest evidence-based research shows for endurance athletes.
So your 180-pound athlete who's drinking 90 ounces of water is approximately 90 kilograms. And if you multiply 90 times, let's say 1.4.
Yep.
Exactly. So you're looking at 90 plus 45, so about
135. Yeah.
135 grams of protein. So like a chicken breast, an average chicken breast would be about how much?
About 30.
30. Okay, so there's your dinner right there.
There's your dinner.
That's almost that's a fourth of what you approximately.
Exactly.
And if you like you said, if you eat each meal, one
so that's why
and about 30 grams, right?
You have an egg for breakfast, or you have a smoothie with some protein powder. Maybe you have a snack in the middle of the afternoon, some crackers, an apple, string cheese, maybe a Greek yogurt, for a mid-morning snack. Dinner, you have maybe, if you're a vegetarian athlete, like myself, like I get my protein from, I do eat dairy, so I get it from cottage cheese. I love cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, but also beans and lentils, and peanut butter is a big one for me. I do tofu. So there's lots of different ways of getting your protein. To me, it doesn't matter so much of whether you're plant-based protein or animal-based protein. It's that you're getting it regularly throughout the day. So we know a lot more about protein than we did years ago. We used to think you had to combine proteins.
Yeah, like as a vegetarian athlete.
As a vegetarian athlete, like rice and beans or bread and peanut butter. And now we know you don't have to combine it. As long as you're getting a variety of protein sources throughout the day as a vegetarian athlete, then that's fine. So
yeah, your body does it.
I think it's just a good idea to think, okay, each meal having a protein source, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all my snacks have some type of protein to them. Even if it's just like, like I said, a Greek yogurt or a spoonful of peanut butter. I just had a snack myself, a banana and a spoonful of peanut butter. Source of protein. So your protein is so important when it comes to, again, healing, recovery, and then making gains. So if you're someone who's had to, like, your whole race year has just gone like out the window, you're like, well, now what? And you're refocusing on, you're using this opportunity to refocus maybe on your strength or maybe speed. Having adequate protein is still so critical. It doesn't take a back seat just because you're not at the same training level with your endurance sports. So really important to make sure you're getting optimal protein.
Okay, good. All right, and then the last thing, my favorite thing in the whole wide world, sleep. It's amazing to me how I've talked to a number of people over the years in the fitness industry, and there are people who can function on 6 hours, no problem. But if I don't get 8, I'm not a happy camper. So talk to us about how sleep and the impact it has on our athleticism.
Yeah. So sleep, although it's not it's not a nutrition topic, but it actually relates to your nutrition dramatically. It relates to your training too, of course. So the world of sleep has exploded. There is so much sleep research. It's a whole science now. We typically, like you mentioned, Anna, we live in a culture that really almost rewards you for not
sleeping, right?
It's a badge. Like,
I'm only on 4 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. And people are like, wow, good job, way to go.
Yeah, you're awesome.
And what we're learning about sleep is the negative effects of having inadequate sleep. Now, inadequate sleep can be 2 things. It can be lack of quality sleep. So you wake a lot, you toss and turn, you have a hard time going to sleep, or you have very disrupted sleep. Or it could also be just not enough time that you're sleeping. So there can be 2 different things. That without enough quality and amount of sleep, our body cannot build muscle mass adequately, does not recover. We are not able to do physically what we want it to. So you're not going to be making the gains. You're not going to be getting fit more, you're not going to be gaining strength and power and speed and agility and all the things that you're trying to do. You're also going to have a harder time focusing. So if your body is not able to rest and recover, our brain doesn't get the rest it needs. So you might be sitting at work trying to figure out, like, what was I supposed to do? What was this project? Or you might even be out for a long run and be like, I'm starting to not be able to figure this out. How many, what's my pace? How much, or how many grams of carbs do I need? Or all those things are impacted. So inadequate sleep can really, really set you back as an athlete. And how it impacts your nutrition is that I find that people who don't get enough sleep and are not rested going into the day, they tend to chase the whole day of trying to build up their energy. They have like an energy drink and then something sugary to get them going. And then, you know, they're trying to stay awake, so they're eating some food. I want a snack. And they're just kind of constantly chasing that energy. And it's not to say that we're never going to do that. I mean, be kind with yourself. There are days that you just don't get enough sleep for whatever reason.
Right.
You have a new puppy, you have a baby, you're lightning or whatever, you know.
The kids are home.
Exactly. The kids are home. All that stuff. So I understand it's not going to be perfect all the time, but putting the emphasis on your sleep can have a huge impact on your overall nutrition, the goals you're setting nutrition-wise and what your body responds to, and then your training as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the sleep science, again, is really, it's a newer concept, but the ideas that we're getting from it are just really kind of mind-blowing, that the detriments that we see with lack of sleep are like worse than drunk driving. You know, wow. Distracted driving, with lack of sleep is much more than somebody who has been drinking. I mean, that's amazing. And then just the lack of productivity that you have at work and just the lack of ability to optimize your training, really huge. So I put, to be honest, if we're talking about, you know, the importance, you know, sleep is right in there with training and nutrition to me. You are not going to get anywhere if one of those three is missing and you're just doing two of them or even just one of them. You're not going to make the gains that you would want to be making. So, you know, you mentioned 6 hours and some people need 8, some people need 9. The recommendations are the average person needs somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. Now, if you have a teenager, you know that they need more, they sleep more. There are some people who seem to be optimally efficient throughout their day with less. I would challenge that though. I would say, you know, if you wake up on your own and you're refreshed and you have great energy throughout the day and you feel like you're able to perform well with your activities, then maybe you are getting enough. But if you're someone who gets kind of dragging, you always need the alarm clock, and you're getting 6, it's probably not enough. And
I heard the snooze button is a bad thing. Like hitting the snooze. I heard that that's a bad thing to do because you can really mess up your cycle of sleep in the morning, and then it makes you even more tired. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of wakes you up partially, and then you kind of go back to sleep, and then it wakes you up partially. Whereas, you know, the reality is that extra half hour that you could get of sleep instead of snoozing would actually be so much more beneficial.
Better than snoozing.
And of course, one of the biggest problems is the screens from a sleep standpoint. And so one of the things that we did in my family is I got blue blocking glasses, and I got them on Amazon. So if we happen to watch a movie at night, or I'm texting somebody or working on emails or something, at least I wear my blue blockers. So that's a positive thing, because what happens is the blue light in the back of our screens, so our screens emit a blue light, it actually activates your brain and says it's time to be awake, it's time to be alert.
Okay.
What it also does is it decreases our melatonin production. Melatonin is a hormone our body produces to tell us we're sleepy. So what also happens, it then tells your body like it's time to get going, and then you think, oh, I need to get up, I need to eat something. I mean, it happened just last night. My husband was like, I'm really tired. I think I'm gonna grab a snack. And I said, well, what's that got to do?
Right, those two things don't go together.
Exactly. And he's like, well, I just want to stay awake and finish watching the show. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I mean. Like, you know, really what he needed was sleep. But the lights in our screens tell us to get going, tell us to get.
And the TV also, right? The TV screen, not just our phone or computers.
Right. Okay. Everything, Kindles, everything. So get some blue blocker glasses, or, you know, sleep researchers recommend having a routine, just like you would with your training. Have a routine, training wise, have a bedtime routine, start winding down, dim your lights, like an hour or so before bed. Start to create a routine where it's a little quieter. You turn off your screens. Maybe you read an actual book, or you take a bath or a shower or have something that helps you to wind down. And I know we're running into our time, but I want to, the last two things on this that I think are such great ideas from sleep researchers are to, when you climb into bed, have beside your bed, have either a notebook or some paper or a journal or something that you write down some things you're grateful for. And that's a good way of wrapping up your day and helping you end on a positive note. The other thing that I think is a great idea for people who have a really hard time turning their brain off, they get into bed and they're thinking about,
yeah, that's me,
doing this, doing that. Yeah. So have a worry journal. So you write down what you're worried about or what you're thinking about, you put it in your journal, and then you close the book and you like put it aside. And then you say to yourself when you lay down, like, it's there, I can come back to it. It's like, okay, I'll get back to that, but for now I'm going to clear my head. So it's
That's a good idea.
And there's something about writing it down on paper, not just thinking it. Like the actual physical part of writing it on paper really can help you to separate from those worries. So I think those are some great ideas to help with sleep. And again, it all ties back into the nutrition piece, because if you haven't slept good, you're going to need more caffeine in the morning to get going. You're going to need some pick-me-ups from a sugar standpoint, and you're going to be chasing it all day long.
All day, yeah. And like you said, turning over that protein is not going to be beneficial if we're lacking sleep. So all those macros we're taking in and all that training we're doing and all that trying to catch up is not going to work if we're not sleeping. That's why you left it last, because it was the most important.
It really is. I mean, it's your foundation. And if you're not getting optimal sleep, all the other things we talked about, it's like they're not even going to be able to work optimally because you haven't the sleep and the rest your body needs.
Right.
And great. Like if you're someone who takes a nap, research shows that a 15-minute nap can outperform caffeine. So if you can get a 15-minute nap.
I've heard that. I've heard my stress is like, but I've heard if you sleep longer than 15 minutes. So I'm afraid I'm going to fall asleep and then I won't wake up, and then so I don't nap.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either, but it's something I have pondered. I have pondered about that. And for that is one opportunity you could set an alarm for that. That would be a time to set your alarm, do a cat nap, if they call them a cat nap, 10, 15 minutes, and then you're up and going, a little power nap. So
see, that's why these
athletes
guys
do it all the time.
There's two nappers right there.
There you go. If you talk to most professional athletes, professional nappers. Professional athletes do it all the time. They take
nap all the time. You're right.
You have naps. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, Beth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Again, in our two-part series, I'd love to continue doing this on a regular basis. And if we do, then we'll definitely keep our Facebook family aware of what's going on. All right.
Great.
And you guys
definitely stay safe.
Anna. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Take care. Bye.